This week we're reviewing Grim Fandango Remastered. We'll have a spoiler-free review and then full discussion afterwards. All right, so this week we're reviewing Grim Fandango Remastered. This is a re-release of Grim Fandango, which originally came out in 1998. It was a LucasArts game. And it was directed by, directed by Tim Schafer, who now owns and operates Double Fine, which is another a game studio that we reviewed some other games of. We talked about Space DF9 a while ago. And he's also, now his company, Double Fine, came back and did a remastered version of Grim Fandango, and that just came out recently back, I think at the end of January of this year. It's available on a bunch of different platforms. I think we basically all played it on desktop, unless one of you played it on like PlayStation or
Steam,
something, right?
Yeah.
Steam, okay. I think the synopsis of this game would be described as it's an adventure game, like the old LucasArts adventure games like Indiana Jones or The Dig or Day of the Tentacle or Monkey Island. But it's set in this interesting like Art Deco / film noir. Is that how you pronounce that? Noir?
Yeah.
Noir?
Refer to our
good. Okay. Expert. Judges? Version. So Art Deco film noir version of the Mexican Day of the Dead sort of thing / afterlife something.
So far, we're probably doing okay.
Yeah, all the characters are dead. They're skeletons. But they all, live in the city with like all this interesting like architecture and stuff, and drive around old cars, and wear suits and have jobs as travel agents, and hijinks ensue. And I guess that's the
what more do you
short
know?
version. I don't know.
So the main character, Manny, is that the
Manny?
Yeah, he's a travel agent.
Yeah. He's basically like, he has like a Grim Reaper outfit that he puts on and goes and like collects people's souls and then tries to get them packages on like cruise ships and trains to go to the night, because they're in the 8th underworld,
right,
and they're trying to all get to the 9th underworld.
Right.
And so like, yeah. And there's sort of the implication there that like, it takes a really long time, and like you kind of have to like serve out your time in the 8th underworld before you get to sort of the reward of the 9th underworld. And so that's sort of like Manny's thing, is that like he's trying to just sort of like get by and like do his time until he can get out of here and actually go on to like the next great thing. And he's dissatisfied with his job as being a travel agent. We're starting to get into the nitty gritty of the process.
And you can switch actually back and forth between the old version of the game and the new version of the game.
Yeah, which is super cool. Do you guys do that?
No.
There's a key, I think / or something.
Delete key or backspace.
Delete key. Yeah.
But when you press it, it'll toggle between the updated renderer and the old renderer, which is pretty wild to see.
Yeah. Like, wow. I need to try this out.
Yeah, what's really interesting too is that like the all the background artwork is like pre-rendered. And only the characters themselves are actually rendered like when you're playing it. So that's the only part that really changes, right? Because they didn't upgrade the backgrounds. Like all the backgrounds are the original. So just the characters themselves. Yeah. You suddenly like, oh, they have like quadruple the number of pixels and actual like lighting and shading. And like, because before it was all just like flat textures. And with the updated one, I was reading some like behind the scenes thing, and they were saying that like one of the cool parts of the remastered version is that like when Manny like lights a cigarette or something, like if you just stand around for like a while and don't touch anything, he like just lights up a cigarette. And in the old version, it was kind of weird. They couldn't make it look right. In the new version, like the match can like light up his face and like, do all kinds of like cool lighting effects.
Multiple light sources.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, that is pretty cool.
Or just light sources.
Light sources. Yes, 3D with lights. So anyway, Which one of us actually came up with the idea to do this one? Was this a group effort?
I think you had mentioned before that. Oh, I know what happened. We were talking about some other game, and I was listing a bunch of these games that get remastered, and you hooked onto it. You're like, oh yeah, that's the one I've always wanted to play, because I think it had been on your list for a while, right?
Yeah. I feel like back when it was new-ish, I had heard about it, and I didn't really know the details of the plot, but just something about it seemed like really interesting. And now that the remastered version came out, it's like, oh man, like game that I never got to play at the time. Like, go check it out. Okay, so
I think it was a group effort.
I guess I'm trying to figure out like who was like the most skeptical before we started. Like
That's a really interesting question. So I don't know. I didn't really know anything about it. I guess I'll go. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So I had heard the name before, and I knew it involved the Day of the Dead stuff, and I had seen stills of it, and I was kind of like, I got the gist of what it was. It was like a noir thing. Still saying it right? Noir thing. Just gonna be cutting over to Steve the whole time. So it was a noir thing. I knew it was point and click adventure. I knew it was this LucasArts kind of era. But beyond that, I didn't have any sense of like whether it was comedy or serious or anything like that. And it is a comedy. And I was, I think I'm always fairly skeptical going into these sort of remastered games because I always feel like there really isn't that much they update. Maybe this is more biting on the console where it's like you're playing something where it started in 3D. I guess this kind of did, but you know, the games that start in 3D and then they go to the next console and it's just like more polygons or something, but it's not usually worth the price.
You thinking of like The Last of Us Remastered or like
one of those things, the Halo or something, you know, something like that. It's usually kind of, it doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't usually, I feel like I didn't enjoy playing those because it wasn't that big of a thing, but this one I'd never played. So it was a little bit different. It's interesting. Okay. So I have mixed feelings about this. It's been one really important thing to mention is it's been a long time since I've played a point and click adventure game of this style. So I mean, I don't even know, 10 years or something since I played something like this. And I think I had an idea of what it was like, but going back through it, I don't know if this is the typical adventure game nowadays. Basically what this comes down to is I really like the characters and I really like the story and the writing is really clever and it's often laugh out loud funny in a lot of cases. The game is not fun to play. Like, it's just like there's just so many, and I don't know if at the time it felt different, but now my reaction, like my picture of this game is watching Manny walk. Like, and it's just crazy sometimes.
Incredibly slowly.
Yeah, like
you know how to make him run, right?
What? Are you serious?
If you double click, he runs, or if you hold the shift key, he runs.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh! I can't believe you played the whole game walking.
It never tells you to do that.
How would you tolerate that?
I was okay. So
I'm so sorry. We should have like met earlier.
Well, so here's the other thing is that because
and then plus you click and you think he's going one direction and then he goes the other direction.
Yeah.
Like no, he like walks so slowly down this like really long like street or something. Like oh no, he went that way again. Like, wait for him to finish going that way.
You can use the arrow keys to just move him directly
what?
Instead of holy smokes, you guys.
It's a point click adventure game.
Yeah, but you don't have. I mean, the whole thing about tank controls being such a big deal.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so first I'm gonna tell you how I played the game, and then you can tell me how I should play the game. Good God. So literally this was, because what I remember from playing these games in the past is like you didn't have any of that stuff. There was no run key or there was no like, the way they compensated for it is the spaces were small. Mm-hmm. So I was just like clicking like what I thought. And like there were some of these things were like comically large. Like till like there's a place where you go on the rooftop where the like some pigeons are and you have to collect something. And it's like the size of a football field. And I clicked, I'm like, there's no way this is the way they expect this to be. But because it's one of these classic games, there's no tutorial or anything.
No.
It just starts. Yeah. You're just there. And it's like, oh, I guess I can just click on stuff. And like, I was figuring that would be enough. But so, I mean, you know, it happened the one time on the roof and I was like, okay, well, this is probably an exceptional circumstance or whatever. No, it is the entire time I played, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like I'm saying, like to the point, literally the way I ended up playing is I have two monitors, so I'd have him walking on one screen, and over here it'd be like an eBay, like Amazon, no joke, seriously. Because I was like, and I'd just be doing stuff. Nope, not halfway. Nope, I'd be doing that thing. And I was just like, I thought this was just the way the game was played, and people didn't mind back then because they didn't have as much stuff to do or something. So I was like, God, am I so like used to fast moving stuff that it? So I don't know. Maybe I need to like. I kind of feel like my review's not going to be fair now because. There was no indication like how to run, or I guess I should have looked at the help thing, or like.
I mean, this is a criticism of the game that, like, you know, it doesn't give you any assistance at all.
Yeah.
Like, to give you any indication of what to do.
So there's another much bigger thing. What I wish is that I wish I could just watch it as like a cartoon or whatever, because it was fun. You know, like I really enjoyed like it's such an irreverent take on everything, and it's like there's so many kind of like. I don't know what the type of humor it is, but it's like kind of like surprising jokes that they call out, or like completely deadpan delivery in a lot of cases, or like here's an example is like they say, well, what are you qualified for as a job? He's like, well, I'm a salesman. He's like, well, I've only got one mop, you know, like that kind of thing where it's like, you know, just sort of the subtle humor. But yeah, so aside from the walking simulator aspect of it, like the other thing is like, I was taking a really long time trying to figure out some of the puzzles.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just didn't feel like I was going to get done in time to review for the show. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start looking through the walkthrough just to like get somewhere of substance. And I started reading the solutions. I'm like, I don't think I ever would have tried these things. Yeah. Like just particularly early on, I'm just like, there's this balloon, there's a clown with balloons, and there's some very specific combination of balloons you need to get. And he offers like 6, and you need like 2 of one and 1 of another. Yeah, I used all of them. Okay. Or I don't know. This is what was my experience.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed something, but like, but just all kinds of weird things that work in ways that like just completely defy logic. So you have this collection of things, and I guess the assumption is that you can say, well, this would probably do this thing, and you can match them up, but it was just completely nonsensical. I mean, there was no connection to them, and I was like, I really don't think I would want to play a game where it's just utterly trial and error, and through this complete combinatoric of everything you have with the, hour and a half walking between different places. So I don't know if games have always been this way. It's just been so long since I've played them that I forgot that this is one of the tropes of it, but it was really, really a chore. And I didn't finish the game because I just literally didn't have time, and it felt frustrating to sit down and play. I did enjoy the cutscenes, which it's like the opposite of the usual. It's like, I just stopped the cutscenes, I just want to play. But this is like, oh, I've got to like click through some random things. We should talk in the spoilers about one that I thought was ridiculously bad.
Okay.
But so overall, I just don't think I can recommend it because it just, well, now that you can run, I mean, that changes a little bit. But still, like even if I was running everywhere, the puzzle thing is not satisfying. It's just, oh, you happen to guess the one wacky combination of things. Yeah. And it's just, it feels really poorly designed now. Like there's just not, I can't recommend it. But it is, if you watch somebody else play who knows what they're doing, that's fun. I mean, I enjoyed the dialogue and everything, but sorry, really long-winded version of, I mean, I enjoyed it, but not the playing part.
Okay. What were your thoughts, Steve?
One of the things, so I first started out, like I was really just delighted to see the LucasArts gold guy again. Like I hadn't seen,
talking
abstract,
like a little intro logo.
I feel like so many games I played when I was a kid, like started out with that, like I'm, like Sam & Max or Day of the Tentacle or like
the
Rebel Assault, The Dig, Dark Forces, like all these games. Always start with that thing. And I kind of like completely forgotten about it, and then it was there again. I was like, like just brought me back to my childhood. I had not played this game though when it first came out. I hadn't even heard of it. So I didn't even have any idea what it was going into it. So it was kind of a shock. I mean, it was shocking. And then I was like, oh, wait, this feels kind of like Day of the Tentacle, kind of absurd, And then I like the absurdity of the premise, and that kind of that. It felt like that era of LucasArts, like where they just like take this crazy premise and just run with it, And so that was cool. But I sort of had a similar experience to Scott. I mean, in many ways, not knowing about running, for example. Like very quickly, I was like, oh my god! Like and like control something like that. Click on kind of like there became some road, and there'd be like all these like. There'd be like a straight, and there'd be like alleys going in different directions, and you're like, I want to go in that alley, click on the alley, and instead you walk the other direction, and he's like, and then like I clicked right on the alley, like how did you not go over there? The controls just were like bizarrely, like misinterpreted a lot of times, so that was frustrating, and then the slowness was really which I feel a little bad about now as well, but yeah, I mean, I really like I was less bothered by that than I was by. Like I felt the puzzles felt sort of unsatisfying. I didn't feel like accomplished after doing them. It felt just like, oh, that's what it was. Like I needed to go to this computer and choose this option. Like, I don't know. They felt like trial and error. Like you just had to like click on everything to see if it was possibly interactive, and then just like, loop back around the same like same locations over and over again until you had gotten like you'd like. The right combination of everything in every location, and then you could move on. So they didn't, it wasn't as satisfying. And like I know there's like Myst is kind of like that too, where you just kind of go on click on things and put together puzzles. But I feel like it was just so beautiful and delightful, like a place to like be, like those worlds that I was okay with that. And there was just like a really compelling, deeper mystery that I was propelled by. And here, I did not enjoy the art style. Because like I know Art Deco is not really my thing, and like this particular take on it was not really my thing either. And so I like the crazy premise, but like it wasn't beautiful to look at, and there wasn't like a particularly great sound design or anything else to kind of like make me just enjoy being there. And then like the puzzles just weren't enough. And I kind of just wanted to get on to the next phase, and maybe it would be better. And I don't think it ever really was. I didn't finish the game. So yeah, I don't really recommend it either. I mean, I sort of applaud it, like the originality of it, but I didn't really have fun playing it.
Okay.
So what did you think, Justin?
Wow.
But start with like, did you know about it before and all that kind of stuff? Because I think we didn't know anything. Did you know about it?
I knew very little. I mean, I knew that it had like the Day They Did theme, and I knew that it kind of had like the sort of old school style, and that was kind of all that I knew. And I didn't really know how that all kind of fit together, but it just seemed interesting. And so, I had the chance to play the remastered version. I'm like, oh, cool. So I've played at least one other LucasArts adventure game that I can think of, which is The Dig, which is like the sci-fi one. And it was tough. Like the puzzles were tough. Like I think they were tough the same way that these ones were, right? And like, I definitely at the end of it kind of had a feeling like, yeah, okay, some of those puzzles were like, that was crazy. Like there was no way that a reasonable person like could have guessed that. And I think that that's the case here sometimes too. Like they have this weird sort of like dream logic to the puzzles, right? Like, well, if I take these things and put them together and it'll do this, and you're like, who thought that? Like, no, like I don't know, because I guess that, like my strategy, like with the game, is sort of be like, well, if I was really in the situation, like what would I be trying to do? And that's never the answer, basically, right? And so it stops sort of being a game about like, well, what's like a reasonable thing to do, and it starts to become a game of like, well, what did the game designer want me to do, which is like not the same thing, right? So yeah, I did have to look up like a ton of hints, like, and it was cool. Actually, I found this website. We'll have to put a link to it in the show notes. I can't remember what it is offhand, but it would give you hints, but it like specifically like doled them out like only a little bit at a time, and so it would hide the ones that you hadn't explicitly clicked on, so you wouldn't spoil yourself for like other things. So it would give you, it starts like a really broad hint, and then it would slightly give you like slightly more specific hints until it basically just like tells you the answer, which is nice because then I could sort of get like a prod in the right direction, be like, oh, okay, maybe I'll try this, or it would just tell you the item that you need, but not where to get it or like whatever. So that was kind of helpful. Overall, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was fun. The puzzles were like, I got stuck on some of them sometimes, but I don't know. I guess when I started the game, I felt really bad when I had to turn to like the hints, like I'd read the hints and be like, man, I'm like failing at the game that I have to read these hints. And then I don't remember at what point in the game it was, but I just reached a point where I'm like, who am I trying to impress? Or like, I guess on some level I was like, well, I'm not really enjoying the game like the way it's meant to be enjoyed if I have to like rely on this other thing to get me through it. And at a certain point I was like, well, if it's not fun to play without the hints, and it is fun to play with the hints, let's just play with the hints.
Right.
Like I'm not doing anybody any favors by like not liking the game because I didn't want to read the hints out of some like macho idea that I don't need hints to like finish the game. So
you basically did what Scott said he wanted to do, which is basically watch the game.
Well, I don't know. No, I made a solid effort at the puzzles, but as soon as I got stuck for more than like a minute or two, I'd be like, screw it, I'm going to look at a hint, And like, sometimes it took me just one hint, sometimes it took me a couple hints, But I was just like, I just don't ever want to feel like I'm just bashing my head against the wall. I do that at work. I don't need to do that, Like I don't need to do that when I'm playing a video game, right? So it's like, I don't know. So I think it really helped to have the hint system. But yeah, I loved the humor. The story was funny and interesting. I finished the game all the way through, and I thought it was cool. I think I would recommend it, but with like a giant asterisk that like it is still a game from 1998. Like they updated the graphics, they didn't update the gameplay, they didn't update
not all the graphics.
Well, yeah, some of them really, still a little rough, but like, yeah. So if you know like what you're getting yourself into, I think it can be really cool. And if that kind of game is like a thing that you want to do or whatever, like if you coming at it like from the right angle or like whatever, I think it can be cool. But like just as a, hey, you've never heard of this, just go out and play it. Yeah, it's kind of tough to recommend to like a modern audience. But no, I thought it was cool and fun. And I'm glad that they remastered it and that I got a chance to play it.
Yeah, the puzzle thing, I mean, I kind of think like if you contrast this with when we interviewed the people behind Monument Valley, what they said was that the reason, like they would play testing Monument Valley and people would get kind of stuck, but then they wouldn't want to tell them what it was because they were close to it. And then when they figured it out for themselves, there was sort of that satisfaction of, oh, I pieced that together. And I think that's why, you sort of have that feeling of, I don't want to look up the hints because I'm not I'm not getting the most fun I could get from this.
Yeah.
But I think because of the nature of the puzzles, it's not something where there's like a hierarchy of knowledge, right? It's just like, I'll just try some more random stuff. And it's like a total like crapshoot. Like, oh, I happen to guess the fire extinguisher could be put into a sandwich, and like I could put that inside of a car. It's just stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. So it's not like, I think the thing is like, the reason I don't feel guilty about it in the same way you don't is that there's no real sense of accomplishment when you've done it. So you don't feel like you're cheating yourself out of anything. You're just gaining back some time. Yeah. You would, if there was some sort of logic, or if you could build up some sort of base of like, oh, this is how the rules in this world work, then you could kind of feel like you're making progress, but there's no way to like level up, right? It's just like,
I guess not. I did feel like I got better at them as I went, and then I needed the hints less, like the further I got in the game. I mean, there was never a point in the game where I didn't need any hints at all. But I feel like I did sort of get better. And I don't think it's because like the puzzle started making any sense. I think I just sort of like feel out the mind of the designer a little bit more. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, this particular person's brand of like zany logic is kind of like this. It's like, okay, I can roll with that. And like, it doesn't make actual sense, but like, it seems like I can sort of like get a feel for that, whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm like totally making this up.
Well, it did. I mean, it did feel to me, at least within the first third of the game, that like, the learning curve, I mean, it really is really hard in the beginning for some reason. And then it actually gets a little bit easier in this sort of second area or third area, I guess. So it felt a little unbalanced. Like you would almost think like the first puzzles would be super easy just to sort of ease you in. But there was like stuff that I like never would have guessed. And it just like literally, it's not that I mind sitting there and like trying to hand somebody 6 different things. It's that you would often have to book all the way to the other end of town and get something.
There's a lot of fetch quests kind of. Yeah. And it feels like you get all the way to someplace and realize you don't have the one thing you need, which is like literally on the opposite end of the level. And you're like,
this is silly.
I know what to do. And that's one of those things where it's like a game design thing. It's just like no tutorials is like, it's just like nowadays games have tutorials, and like almost to the point where it's like too handholdy, right? Where it's like, have you guys seen like these photos or like Photoshop jobs where it's like, if Super Mario Bros. Was made today, and it would have like all this tutorial crap like all over, like jump on this thing, like do all this stuff, and it's like, you know, like some games didn't really need all that, or maybe just Mario itself is like so ingrained in everyone's heads that they don't need a tutorial. But so the no tutorials is like just a modern game design thing. And I think also like fast travel, right? Like that's the thing that I kind of wanted in the game, where it's like, especially in year 2 when you're in Rubikava and you're like running around doing all this stuff, it just feels like it takes forever to get from one end to the other. And you have to do it like a million times. And it's like, I know exactly where I want to go. I wish I could just bring up a map and just click where I want to go and then just be there, you know? And like, maybe they can take that ability away at certain times for like plot reasons, but like for the vast majority of the game, I don't care. Like, I know I don't want to. I've seen the scenery. It's great. I don't want to see it another 100 times, you know? So it's like.
And you can't really, I mean, it's also different than a modern game, because in a full 3D game, like as you're walking through the town, you'll get different angles on things, but these are all pre-rendered. So it's like you've literally seen that exact scene multiple times. Yeah. It's not like there's a day-night cycle.
It's like you can, a lot of times you can even take a different route in this game. It's like, no, it's the same way every single
time. Pretty much only one way
way
to get everywhere.
Even honestly, just navigating is sometimes not super apparent. Like there's some places where you don't really know that there's like some other place you can go.
Yeah, there was a whole section of Rubikava that I didn't even know you could go to, because it's just like the camera angles were poor that they had chosen. And so like there's one spot where it's like kind of a really long shot, and you can sort of see the entrance to the place that you're going. And then as you walk towards it, the camera angle flips around. Oh, yeah. And now you're looking completely the opposite way. And now it's like, wait, but okay. But no, it wasn't even like a wait, but it was just like a, oh, okay, there's nothing more over there. It's like, no, actually you can go all the way out there. Yeah. But like you just have to kind of see that in the details in the distance. And it's like, so I don't know.
I mean, I don't regret playing the time that I played, but I just, it would be hard to, I mean, there's so many other interesting things to do, you know, in the game space. It's
one of the things that I wondered is like, if I were to go back and replay a lot of these games like when I was a kid, like, would I enjoy them now? Yeah. Like, I mean, because part of me, like, I mean, I had a lot more time as a kid.
Well, there's less stuff, right? Like there wasn't like as many movies and games.
Yeah, and I had very few games on my head, you know, that I had a hold of. So like, you know, I played all of them, you know, all the way through. And
this is my 400th playthrough of this.
But I mean, like, part of me wonders if just, you know, is it just like the fact that I have less time and maybe, you know, more options for more satisfying entertainment right now.
Well, the walking thing I feel just throws off our perspective because it was just I was literally on multiple.
It's really
or do I just have like these rose-colored glasses? Like I remember fondly these games that maybe weren't as great as I thought.
Could be a little both.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind that I guess it's a public service message that we can tell everybody if you're playing, be sure to run.
Yes,
but it's just
shift.
Like
Shift key makes you run.
I mean, it's just it almost seems irresponsible to not at just one sentence somewhere in the game to say hold shift.
Yeah,
like one time would have been enough, or like even just make him run.
Sure.
Do you need to walk? I don't know.
Really? Is it really necessary for the dramatic tension to walk over?
Yeah, I feel bad, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you played. Do it quickly. I was trying to calculate. It was like, wow, I really don't know how long it would take me to play this game walking. Like, it feels like it would take like 40 hours. And be like, I don't think I'd want to play 40 hours of Grim Fandango. I mean, a few hours is okay.
Sure.
So what happened to LucasArts?
It got bought by Disney, and I think they kind of shut it down.
I think they've just sort of been disbanded. Right?
Yeah. So like, did you guys buy the rights to it?
I think Disney owns the rights.
But I think Double Fine.
I think Tim Schafer just like knew a guy. It was like
there was a weird. I think it was I don't know the details, but I think it was because of the history.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that Disney does not care about this IP like at all, and so they're like, oh, sure, cut us a slot. If you make any money, send us some. Right? It's like they're like, whatever, knock yourself out, kid. You don't play with the Grim Fandango.
I'm trying. This has made me a little bit gun shy about trying some of the newer adventure games that are coming out, and I don't know if maybe it shouldn't.
Well, but those are informed by all the game design innovation that's happened between now and then, right? Like the difficulty curves will be tuned differently, and like there'll be more tutorial stuff, and it'll be like they'll model their controls off of newer games that you're more used to, and just like tons of like subtle stuff where it's like, and you'll actually get like real 3D graphics, and like it'll be,
that's true. Yeah,
it'll be interactive in the way that you've come to expect from
the
game.
cutscenes are really rough. Like once you've activated something and it was obviously too complex of an animation to render it back in the day.
Just like paste a video on top of the thing.
It's like,
Myst would do that too, though. Like you could see the scenes pretty bad in Myst too.
Well, but it's not. It's more jarring now because it's remastered.
Yeah, because it's like the quality actually gets lower when they switch to the cutscenes because you're like, ooh,
and I feel like they shouldn't have re-rendered that. Like
they may not have the assets.
Yeah.
They're probably lucky to get what they got.
Right? To the entire office. Anybody have this video? Like,
actually, no. I think there was maybe there was a Polygon article that I was reading about, where like how they got the rights and all this stuff. But I think that like to get the actual asset files, they actually had to dig. Like this guy literally had them like in a cardboard box in his garage, and not only did he have the tapes, he had like one of the last machines left that could read the tapes or something like that. And so he had to just like scrape off just like a little bit at a time off of these things.
Wow.
Like it's pretty hardcore. Okay, so overall impressions of the game, Scott.
It was fun. I can't really. I mean, the story was fun, but I don't think I could recommend it.
Okay, Steve.
I applaud the premise, but I cannot recommend it.
Would you say that you appreciate it, but you don't enjoy it?
Sure.
Good job on you.
Yeah. I liked it. I had fun playing it. I would recommend it, but only to people who understand what that era of LucasArts games are and are willing to accept the level of gameplay that comes with it. But for most people, it would come with a very big asterisk.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, we're going to move on and talk about some spoiler stuff after the break. Before we go do that, if you'd like to contact us and tell us how wrong we are about Grim Fandango or anything else that we've talked about, you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/LowEarthShow. You can find our website where we have all the show notes. We mentioned that a couple of times. We'll put links to stuff that we talked about. That's on our website at lowerearthorbit.fm. You can also find all of our older episodes there. So we've actually got a bunch of episodes we did back before we even started doing YouTube.
Yep.
We have a bunch of audio-only episodes, so those are all there.
The classics.
Yes, from the archives.
Yes.
We have our email address, which is feedback@lowerearthorbit.fm, on Twitter @LowEarthShow, and we have a voicemail line. So the phone number for our voicemail hotline is...
What's a hotline now? I didn't know it got upgraded.
573-880-4420.
We have to get a picture of Pretzel.
Call the number on your screen now.
We have to get a picture of Pretzel with the operator thing.
Operator standing by.
So you should tell them, though, what should they do when they call?
You can call, leave a voicemail, tell us your opinion on Grim Fandango or about anything else we reviewed, something you want us to review.
Just what you're up to,
Yes. criticisms of our hairstyles, whatever. It's fine. Leave us a voicemail. We'll put it on the show.
Yep.
Okay, so on to the spoilers. Okay, so do we have any spoilers, things we want to talk about? Any spoilers, puzzles you want to complain about?
So the puzzle I think that I hit a wall on, which this really isn't fun to play, is the tree thing. Where you have to topple the tree.
I actually got that without having to look up any hints.
Really?
Yeah, it was tough though. That was hard.
I was like, so I guess in fairness, I guess that one, once you get what the thing is, then you can work your way there. But
it's a little subtle.
Well, okay, I can get over the subtle part, but it's stupid tedious. Like you're like wheeling it a little bit more, oh, a little back, and it's like, I mean, that whole scene, it was like the art direction there was just really super boring, and it was just like there's like beavers and like it's just like none of it just felt like so much like
what was
filler.
What was the farthest you got in the game, out of curiosity?
Not very far. I think I got I was dealing with the ship stuff basically. So
like trying to basically get onto the ship.
Not to year 2, I think. I'm
you were probably in year 2.
Yeah, a year later. Yeah. So in year 2. Okay. Yeah. That's not very far through, right?
Well, there's only 5. Let me think. You start out in the city, and then the second year you're in Rubalcaba, and the third year you're on like this island thing. Year 4, I think it's only 4.
Okay.
Because I think that in year 4 is when you start to backtrack.
Okay.
I think there's only 4. Yeah, no, I think there's 4 because they all talk about it takes 4 years to get to the Ninth Underworld, right? So he spends 4 years.
I mean, it did get better for whatever it's worth. Like once you actually have the club, and like after the first year when you actually have the club and you've got people down there, and it's like it just feels like more of an alive game.
Yeah, totally.
But that in between point, actually even almost at the very beginning, but particularly in the Petrified Forest, it's just it's like super boring in every respect. It's like there's nothing there, and you're like,
the setting's not interesting. The puzzles aren't interesting.
How long did it take you to get to the second year?
How long?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to answer because I didn't really even know what I was supposed to be doing for a while until I started looking up hints. So I don't know, a few hours or something like that, I guess. Like of continuous combined playtime.
Sure.
How far did you get?
Well, I mean, I really didn't get very far at all. It was like I got to the end of the first like level, like whatever that like that out of the city basically.
Okay, so you made it into the forest.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still the first year, right?
Yeah, so you're about halfway through because I think the first year. Because I think that you get to the forest and then there's like a handful of things to do in the forest. You have to like
you have to drown all the beavers, and you have to get the sign to get the key.
Right. The sign was the worst. I hated that puzzle.
Actually, the first thing you have to do is you have to like get his heart back.
That was easy.
Yeah, I guess that was super quick. But but just by the way, in terms of walking through the forest, not knowing you can run, that felt like abusively slow. I was like,
so when you got the car, you thought it was fantastic, right? She's like, oh, thank God, I can finally go fast.
Except then, like, he would start to drive. This is the worst because he would start to drive, and you go into one of the corners, and like I guess some built-in event they have. It's like once you get into that screen, like Manny gets out of the car and he takes his sweet time getting out of the car. So there were multiple times where I like went there and it's like I would wait, next minute of my life would be like him getting out of the car, me clicking, he like gets in, gets all situated, puts his seatbelt on, like takes a drink or whatever, and it gets. But it's like as you're walking through the middle of the Petrified Forest and you go up into the really big area, which by the way I think is one of the most wasted spaces in the entire game. There's one key to get out of that whole area.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's walking up to the corner and he's doing his normal slow walk, and then it switches camera angles so you can see that huge expanse, and he's this tiny little guy in this gigantic forest area where you have to walk all the way across.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like at that point I was like, are they like trolling me at this point? Like,
they could be.
Yeah. So you're supposed to you put like a signpost down and it shows you where to go, and it's a total waste of time.
We should review more games that Scott doesn't like. This is far more entertaining than the usual gushing.
Yeah. I just can't believe I didn't know there was a different way to play it. I feel so bad. I mean, it's like. Yeah,
I don't know what to say.
I guess Steve had the same thing.
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, that's why I played it for like I don't know, an hour or something. I mean,
well, did you do any hints? You didn't even tell us. Actually,
no, I didn't do any hints.
See, that seems unplayable.
So I just like went around and around.
Did you get as far as you did?
First, like that whole the city until I finally like got out. The car and got out of there.
Yeah. By the way, so with the balloon animal thing, like I looked up He offers you like 5 or 6 different ones.
Yeah, it's like you can do a cat or a dingo or Robert Frost.
Robert Frost, trying to stump me, eh? Ta-da!
Or what was another one?
The worm, and then the
Dead worm.
Dead worm. So the hints say you need 2 dead worms, which I don't even think it would have been clear to me that I needed multiple of anything.
Yeah.
But he asks you what you want, and so you're supposed to ask for 2 dead worms so you can fill up the liquid stuff, right?
That was the first puzzle where I hit a brick wall. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, why, in what universe would I consider? Because I was like, I had gotten on my own to the mental point where I'm like, I need to put something in the tube to like mess up the machine.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I got that. I was trying to put the fire extinguisher in there. I'm like, yeah,
that's not on fire.
That'll totally screw it up. And I'm just like, well, it looks like it would fit. Like, why won't, you can shove a loaf of bread down in there. And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of running out of ideas. And it never occurred to me. And it's like, oh, I should get an empty balloon and then fill it up with this packing material. And then have another balloon full of the other packing material and put them both down. And it's just like,
how did people survive before the internet? I mean, I guess there was technically internet at that time, but like not that everybody had.
Weren't like hints books like a big deal?
Yeah, totally. Like for a bunch of our like Nintendo 64 games, I think like our parents would buy the game and the hint book just like at the same time, which in hindsight was actually kind of fantastic because then you didn't spend all this time just like, oh, this is the worst. I'm like wasting all this time. Yeah. It's not fun. It's like, just look it up. Oh, that's how you beat the water temple. Great. Okay. Like, you don't have to like muck around with like trying to figure all this stuff out.
But they actually lampooned that in Toy Story 2, where like Rex was like trying to play the game and he's like, they make it so you actually cannot finish the game without the hint book. This is ridiculous. I've been there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think for some of those actually, I think they would write them as the game was being developed. Yeah. So like on day one, you could buy. It's not like they didn't have access to the game, so it's like this. In hindsight, I'm like, this smells a little bit. Yeah, this is a little bit of a racket.
The puzzles did seem like they leveled out a little bit in the second year, where it was a little bit more like, oh, this guy gives you a picture of somebody. It's like, oh, okay, I can imagine showing a picture to somebody to like identify them. It's not like on the worm level of like and like the pigeons. Like there was some bizarre logic. It was like you had to put, I forget, like you put like some meat down and then like the balloon cat, and it's like they eat and then get scared. And it's like
it was weird. So like
drunk.
You had to take the bread and like grind up the bread into crumbs and put it like in this little like bowl or whatever, and they'd fly over it. Well, let's back up. So like the piece of information that you're supposed to know, which is reasonable, is that like pigeons are scared of loud noises. Okay. We're still within the realm of reality.
Sure.
But then when Manny goes up on the roof and he sees like all the pigeons sitting there, he's gonna like, hey, pigeons, blah.
I don't like the looks of those pigeons. Shoot.
And they don't do anything. So you're like, oh, I guess they're not scared of loud noises, right? Or like these are special like tough guy pigeons that don't care.
In fairness, they are dead.
So. Yeah, right. So yeah, you can like grind up the bread and like put it in the bowl and they fly over, and then if you try to like interact with them again, then they like just come all at you, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of out of ideas. So you have to like first you have to I think put the balloon down. And it can be any balloon, I think, and then
okay.
And then you grind up the bread, and then they eat the bread, and then at some point they will pop the balloon, and then the loud noise of the balloon will scare away all the pigeons.
Right.
And it's sort of like, well, why the balloon? Like, why can't I spray the fire extinguisher at them? Why doesn't just shouting at them make them like? Why is it specifically the balloon popping that scares the pigeons and nothing else?
Why are they just pigeon skeletons? I mean, there's all kinds of questions that occur.
It's like, why are they such like ridiculously aggressive pigeons? I don't know. Like, why is Manny afraid of pigeons?
They're all skeletons.
The public has a right to know. I just don't understand.
Existential crisis.
Yeah, so it's like, and just so many of the puzzles were kind of like that, where it was like, you just have to sort of read the designer's mind. And I think that like, thankfully, like a lot of games have sort of like learned these sorts of lessons where it's like, okay, maybe we should foreshadow these things a little more strongly. Maybe we should like give some like more strong hints the longer you get it wrong, like all kinds of stuff.
I do, by the way, I don't know if this is intentional, but I love Manny's like disaffected reaction to the things he does.
Just everything.
He'll crunch up the bread and he'll be like, that's not going to work. It's like, I almost feel like he's like, he's acting on the player's behalf of like just reacting to the this is ridiculous kind of nature of things, which makes it kind of more enjoyable because he's like, you know, that's not on fire. It's like, well, I know. I was expecting to be on fire, you know.
Or like in the second year when you like own the club and you like go down to the basement and everyone's playing roulette and you like try to talk to one of the patrons, you'd be like, not while they're losing. Yeah. Don't talk to them now. They're busy losing their money.
I do like how the goblin, what is it? The demon. Your demon card driver. I was like playing the piano. I think that's pretty funny.
Oh, that was pretty great. Well, they both had like the white jacket and like the outfits.
Yeah, that whole thing, that noir, and it's unfortunate you didn't get to that part because I think that actually is more that sort of like
it has a cool style.
Yeah, it was a lot. It made the whole thing make more sense at that point.
Yeah. So are you going to play more now that you know that you can run?
I don't know. I want to at least see that I'm running, like to know that I had done it, I guess, or like know that how fast it is. You know.
I'm kind of curious how it ends, and if you're not going to finish it, then this can tell us. But if you might finish it, then we should.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if I'm like browsing websites. I'll like have it in one window, like with him just like running faster than he was walking. But.
Okay, I'll write down an envelope and slide it over to Steve. That way he can. Are you going to play anymore? Or are you just? Oh wow. Okay. Okay. So you're
if I was running, I don't know. I just don't want to sit with like the hint site, basically just following along. I don't know. I do get satisfaction solving the puzzles. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously not a lot when they're like they feel arbitrary and like stupid and like really that's all it was, like they do in this game. But I don't know. Just following along in the puzzles just feels like, why am I doing this? Why don't I just read the site? and it usually says like Manny does blah blah blah, and then like and then it's the instructions. I'll just read all the steps in between and figure out like what's going to happen in the game and why it's actually playing. I mean, that's the art style is so beautiful that I'm gonna miss it visually.
Have you guys seen the version of, I don't know if it's the first Uncharted or maybe actually it's all three, but there's a version of it where somebody played through the whole game, but they edited it down so that it's just the cutscenes and enough of the gameplay to like connect them together and like make them make sense together. And it's like a 3-hour movie. Like you just sit there and just watch the whole plot like unfold.
It's incredible how much dialogue they have to record. And
it's crazy. And when you sit down and watch it all, you're like, holy smokes, like you're not even playing the game. Like this is like the short version. Yeah. It's like 3+ hours long. You're like, well, that's pretty ridiculous. But I don't know, like Laura has said that like, she thinks it's fun to watch me play those games, right? My mom kind of actually does the same thing too. Yeah. Like she'll watch my brothers play games. Well, I'm trying to remember the one that just recently they were playing that she was like actually kind of into. Oh man, I can't remember. It wasn't Uncharted. Maybe it was The Last of Us.
Tomb Raider, the new one.
I don't think it was the new Tomb Raider. I don't think it was Dead Space either. But it was something. It was something where it's just kind of like she had no interest to play the game, but she was interested to see how the plot would resolve itself. And so it was like, so it was kind of cool. So maybe somebody should do that. They should make like
just the cutscenes from Grim
Fandango. Yeah, exactly. Just do like a screen recording of them playing all the way through all of Grim Fandango, and then just cut it down to just like the funny dialogue and like interesting action bits and cutscenes. And
that's what I watch that.
That's what some of the game companies are like nervous about, is that you would like, that's, I mean, irrationally, but that's where they're afraid that they don't want Let's Plays on YouTube because they're afraid people like won't play the game because they can just watch. Oh, which in most cases I really don't think that's what it is. Like, because you in my opinion, I see a game being played and it's like, that looks really fun. I think I'll go play this game that I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah.
I think I almost never am like, oh, I don't need to play. I'll just watch somebody else play. Because usually it's just too long anyway to like.
Yeah, and half the time you're like, no, go look at that thing. That looks way more interesting. What are you doing going over there? That looks boring. Let's go look at that interesting thing. But you're not in control, right? So like you want to.
This would be the exception because I wasn't enjoying playing it. But like. Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool. Okay. I think we've totally exhausted this. Okay.
See you next time.
Yep. Yeah.
What was the one I'm thinking of right now?
I don't know. It's Animal Rock or
Animal Vegetable or Mineral.
Yeah. Rock.
There's one that I keep struggling with.
I guess that's kind of the same thing, but
Like,
Oh, do you eat pumpkin seeds?
like, wait, what do you mean? Like in what
Like
context?
recreationally,
No, I mean like as a snack.
medicinally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, so according to Google, whelm is a word. It is but however, it is archaic and literary.
Oh, so somebody
Perfect.
walked around.
So we love it.
Is there an example of like in a sentence?
Indeed, there is. A swimmer whelmed in a raging storm. A brook whelmed up from its source. It was all the rage in the 1850s. Petered out after that.
Right?
So underwhelmed was just really not a thing until like the 1970s.
Wow.
Well, it really started picking up in the 1950s, but like, look at this. It's just very.
So I told
very
you to say
modern
like
word.
Shakespeare invented it or something, but seriously, not to like the 1950s. People use the phrase underwhelmed for the word. Underwhelmed.
Yeah.
That's
A little bit later than I would have thought.
yeah. It's a little.
Like, really, guys.
I don't know how I feel about it now.
Overwhelmed, on the other hand, has been going strong since at least the early 1800s.
Now wait a minute. Hold on. It took us 100 years to change over to under. Let's be real.
So I bet this was like they were using that ironically. It's like, no, guys, it's just like overwhelmed, except the opposite.
Hey man.
So overwhelmed is so whelmed basically means to be submerged, and to be overwhelmed means to be submerged below a large mass. So you can be whelmed in the sea, but overwhelmed by like a wave in the sea.
Okay.
And then underwhelmed. So those two. I can see how I got there,
Actually-
right? Yeah. So like,
Yeah, this is starting to make more sense.
But
This is like
underwhelmed
some
is
sort
kind
of
of-
like
but-
weird, like postmodern.
but
Like,
underwhelmed is like, it kind of breaks the metaphor a little bit. Does that mean you're emerging from the sea? Like it's like.
or it's just like a little wave. You're like, it's kind of expecting a bigger wave. A little underwhelmed right now. We don't do that in the video,
right.
typically.
Yeah.
But then there's a part after that, right? That's
Just the actual.
It's a show.
Yeah.
Is this the show? Is this the show? Is this the show? This is finally the
It's
show.
the buffer between when we start and the outtakes. Which is really why everybody's watching. Yeah.
This tiny, but a thin wafer. Well, we'll have a spoiler-free review and then full discussion after. Okay, sounds good.
We're gonna look at.
I'll go into this camera. All right. This week we're reviewing Grim Fandango Remastered. We'll start with a spoiler-free review and then. Nope.
Had me hanging. I was like, what's gonna happen?
What is gonna happen?
Okay. Yeah. Try one more with your arms flipped around backwards.
Everything's fine.
We're really good at this.
Everything's fine.
I feel so much better about this right now.
Or like these are special like tough guy pigeons.